So as these get more complex, the difficulty to take apart goes up, but you can also start to see the amount of pieces and parts to make things work. What's up, everybody? We have the Goat Guns AK-12, and we're going to disassemble this one. We have done the AK-47 by Goat Guns, and comparatively, it's much easier. The AK-12 has quite a few more parts. It's a good bit more heavy duty. And so we're going to spend a little time going through the details and what you've got. So your basic scratch off card, stickers, thank you card, and the Jack's meat. Okay, so as usual, we got to get the staples out. All right, here we go. So I like to just make sure I have everything out of my way. Now, in my case, I'm going to be painting. So if you're not going into detail painting, you may not ever have to take it this far down. But when I paint, I like to take every part apart that I can. And so we're just going to go over a few things. There's a couple things that I may not take apart, but we'll go over it. So in here, I don't need to take any of this out, except for this. I am actually going to be painting this. And then you have your return right here. This is part of your stand, so you don't need that. And of course, if you're going to paint your stand, you take that out and paint it. So first things first, magazine is polymer or plastic, whichever. So there's a couple of mold marks here and there, so you could spend some time cleaning that up if you wanted to. But in this case, really quite simply, we're just depressing this, and we're going to slide this off. And then this may or may not pop right out, but you're actually not depressing the pin, you're actually depressing this whole thing. So you're going to pull this out, you're going to set it aside. And I put all my paintables in one place. This piece I'm not going to paint. I am just going to kind of show you. It has a screw here, which will allow the mechanism to come apart on the inside. You want to be careful here because this is the part that works with your ejection. So you want to be really careful if you're going to take that apart that you reassemble it properly. If you're going to paint it, then maybe you want to take it apart, but otherwise I can't really see a good reason to take that apart. Okay, so several parts on here. There's 3 pins that we're going to worry about. And if you watch my videos, actually 4 pins because we're going to take this out also. But if you watch my videos before, you'll see that these typically have knurled ends on them, which helps them stay in place. So it's important that you send them out one way and they come back in the same way. So in this case, we just pull this little mechanism out, which releases the pad, and we're going to slide the pad off. Now, this pad is glued on, so the only way you're going to paint this is to sand it down, tape off the rubber matting, unless you wanted to attempt to peel it off. I wouldn't do that, but that's up to you. I'm not going to paint that. We're just going to leave it black. It gets put out of the way. Okay, so we're going to be pushing out each pin, and they're going to come out from this direction so that the knurled end comes out that way. This piece here has the little catch, so we're just going to pop that out. Just find you a good spot. If you don't have one of these stands, I recommend them. I like firearms, so I'm into that anyway. this pin is definitely coming out at an angle, which is not ideal. But sometimes that will happen, and that's okay. This one, as you can see, doesn't have a knurled end on it. But because it's got this spring pushing against it, I'll show you how this works. When it comes out, yeah, this one is actually hung up in there, so we're going to give it a little extra love. Yeah, that's not typical how this one works, but hey, you know, we're in the real life world over here, and I'm doing is I just need to pull this out. So I may have to clean this tube up a little bit. It's all right. Oh, that's why the spring actually popped out. See right here? This spring is supposed to be in that tube, and we want to make sure that it's in there all the way. So it looks like maybe during the punching it out portion, or it was already crooked, but that's fine. We're just going to get it back in there. No big deal. The spring actually can come out to the front, but the most challenging part about this guy, see, there's your spring. I'm going to keep all that together. When we go to put this back in, we're going to slide it in this way. And I'm going to clean this tube up because this thing is unnecessarily stiff now. But when we slide it back in, we're going to have to push the spring into this tube. And then we'll start our pin, and the pin has to catch that spring. It's a little challenging, but not the end of the world. All right, let's get back to it. Came across our first issue and like right away. So, okay, this piece here has another spring to it, which allows this to go up and down. And I just sent it off to the side, which we'll grab that in a second. Just remember, when you're working with springs, you got to be careful. And there's our pins. You see a longer one and a short one. And then if we can get a good shot on there, you'll see they have the knurled ends. And then lastly, typically these pop right out. So there we go. We've got our whole piece that we're going to paint. This piece sometimes will come out, sometimes it doesn't. See if you can get a good shot of it. It's what sticks up down in there, and that's what holds your buffer tube. Sometimes it'll come out easily, sometimes it doesn't. So just be aware that it might fall out on you. Okay, I'm going to bag these small parts up, and then we'll move on to the next stage. All right, so here's all the parts. So I highly advise keeping them. So you can see just the stock alone, those are all your little parts. There's a lot of little parts in this one. So here we go, that's ready. So again, back to my paint pile. Oh, I forgot this one pin. That's going to be important for reassembly. You have your dust cover. This one's pretty straightforward. This is spring loaded, but it stays together. So all we're going to do is take this one screw out, and we'll hold on to both of those parts together. The only piece that's kind of unique about this is that it needs to slide off frontwards this way. And then that's it. That's your dust cover. So that'll get painted. And so we'll bag that. Cool. Okay. This starts to get real complicated, guys. So with a lot of these, some of them are real easy to take apart and put together. But as they get more and more complex, and the more and more you take apart, I think the more, for me at least, I think that there's our safety lock. We're just going to move that off. And I need one tiny bag for that. And we're going to put a little piece of tape on there so I don't forget what that screw is for. Now, typically I do several of these at a time, so I'll remember, but never hurts, especially if there's a delay or I need a couple of days to do other things and I have to come back. So we want to make sure that we tag it. Now, back to what I was saying. So as these get more complex, the difficulty to take apart goes up, but you can also start to see the amount of pieces and parts to make things work. So an example of that is just simply the folder here, okay? So this piece basically just sits there. It doesn't really do much. But your spring here, there's an actual spring down in there, which we're going to leave in place. You can take it out. And the best way, I think, would be to use like a sharp pick so you can get in there and pull the spring. Getting it back in is quite challenging, but all it is holding the mechanical release here. That's really all there is to it. It's pretty simple. So we're going to work on that. And then we've got 2 pins that holds this whole front assembly together, and that's going to come off. The trigger is held in with a pin here. And then you've got this one screw, which again, probably just leave it in place, but if you really wanted to, you take the one screw out and that'll come out. The mag release here, I do remove it because when I paint, I want to make sure that I get paint all in there the way it's supposed to be, and then that it looks right. Otherwise, you can just leave it and paint it. And then we got one Phillips head screw down inside for the grip. Just make sure you get a nice positive pressure against that screw because you don't want to strip it out down in there. And now in this particular case, there's another couple of them that are built this way. I think the 82A1 has got the same deal where there's basically a nut in there, holds it in place. And so all I want to do is put the screw just slightly back in to hold it in place, and then I'll bag it. So if you haven't picked up by now, I bag everything because I'm working on multiple projects at a time, and that way I can safely put everything back in one place without losing it. So there's my grip. It's going to be painted, so it goes in the paint pile. I won't need to mark this one because there's only one thing like it, so that's an easy one. Okay, so we're going to need to tap this out. So we're going to get here, and we're just going to tap here. That's actually a little bit of a piece. Let's see if I can get it this way instead. Cool, there we go, that's better. So there's your knurled end. So it likes to come actually up top. Now pay attention because this piece here, it's at an it's got one little bend to it. So you can see right here, it just kind of sits there, but it has a little hook on it when you take it out. So that's going to fall out on you. So just pull this out. Just push it the rest of the way out since it's being stubborn. Cool. There's your knurled. There's your buffer tube, and then there's this little piece. So we got to put this back in later. It's just going to go in like this to go down in your pinhole. So that is going to get bagged with this piece. And again, just remembering the direction that those little knobs go will help you a lot when the time comes. And I have so many of these little bags. I need to get more of these little ones because they're super helpful. Okay, so next is going to be the trigger assembly. Not much of an assembly, it's just So just gonna get that out. There you go. And there's your trigger with a tiny little spring, so don't lose that. We're going to bag these pieces together. Now, if you're only working on one project and you got plenty of space to lay everything out, freaking cool. That's awesome. Okay, so the mag release has a spring in it. I'm not going to be able to show you in this video very well, but you can see right there, you can see the spring. So if you just take note that that spring is fairly stationary, it doesn't really pop out on you. You just got to make sure you pay attention to how it goes in. I made a choice here to go ahead and remove the mag release, but I don't recommend it. As I said, you can paint with it in place, but the issue that I'm having is the spring puts so much pressure on the pin that it makes it really difficult to push it back through the other side. Stay tuned for part 2, and I will demonstrate just how frustrating it was to get the mag release back in the slot. Keep the spring placed at the same time putting the pin in. It did prove to be pretty challenging. Back up there because it popped out on me. You have to keep it straight, and you don't want to force it because you need that pin to be sitting in that channel. Okay, there we go. This is the stuff that y'all are going to run into. There we go. There we go. Okay. So I just want to be able to show them. So I'm trying to tap it really gently. That's the knurled end. So just taking note. Now I'm going to leave my pin in here momentarily. I'm going to hold it. Now it's not going to jump on you too much, but you can kind of see the direction of that. So you just need to pay attention when you go to put it back in there. You're going to basically have to press it in. It's just going to get pressed in like so, which takes a little bit of patience and whatnot, and you'll get it in there. You'll be okay. But again, I'm trying not to lose all our parts. I'm going to bag this one up. Okay, so I'm choosing to leave this piece in here because when I blast it, it's going to blast right over it. I'm going to spray right over it. No big deal. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm also choosing to leave this piece in because once I blast it, I'm going to spray it. It'll spray it all so it'll fit right in. And I usually go back in with a Q-tip and a little bit of oil, and I lube all these moving parts anyway, so they'll be good. As of right now, I haven't seen a reason to remove it because putting the spring back in is challenging at best. And so I'm going to leave it and we'll see how it goes. So I don't think you'll have any issues there. But if you want to pull it out, just basically got a spring that's sitting in there. And when you go to put that spring back in, you have to basically line it up and then press it into place. Not hard, but I don't want to take a chance that spring flying or any of that kind of stuff. So, okay, let's get rolling here. And I think yeah, it goes the other way. That's what I thought. All right. So we're just going to tap, tap. Here we go. So you see again, there is your knurled edge. Just take note it's going out to the left. I'm just going to take one more of these. All right, those two are the same size, so no worries there. Cool. And this just comes apart. Now you have your lower receiver ready for paint. Now, this piece, in the beginning, it messed with me, but it's not as bad as I thought it was. finding the right star bit, that was probably the hardest part because they're so freaking tiny. The bit that I'm using, I think, is a T6. Yeah, it's a little mini T6. And out of all of the little Phillips head screws that we've used over the years with these, I'm not sure why they chose to move the star bits on these, but I'm sure there's a reason. So we're just going to get these out. Now these screws just holding our pick rails. Cool, so this is going to pop right off. So you see those go into the lower like that, and then this is ready for paint. It's funny, the last one I did, the inside and undercoating was all tan, so you can tell they converted a tan one. And then this one is here. Now this is a little bit confusing, and this is part that got me. So you actually have to slide this forward here so that you have space off the barrel to pull this off. And that's it, because then this is ready for paint. Now, do you want to take all of this apart? Totally depends on how you're painting it, and if I was doing a full custom, I would say yes, 100%. Pretty easy to do. So this piece here and this piece here, they come out. That comes off, so you can slide the portion of your muzzle device off. Then this one's going to come out, which will allow this to slide off of here. This basically will slide forward, which is very similar to the AK. This upper assembly is threaded, so you actually will turn it and it's threaded. It'll unscrew from here. This lower portion of the barrel is pressed in which case you'll need a long, thin punch to get way down in there. It has to be really skinny because, see if I can get a shot of that shiny. You can see the shiny down in there. You have to really get down in there and punch it, and you can punch the barrel out. Now the barrel's pressed in, so if you punched out, when you put it back in, it may or may not ever stay the same way, so just be prepared for that. But otherwise, this will slide off. Once that's off, this piece unscrews, that slides off, this upper piece unscrews, you slide that off. And then for some reason, if you really feel the need to push this barrel so you can paint this all separately, by all means, tap that bad boy out. I would highly recommend putting it in a vise or something so you can get a good whack on it. But otherwise, I'm not painting this portion because the work that I'm doing now, I'm putting mostly in just the primary body parts, and I'm doing 5 of that style. So we're not going to paint this. So lastly here, I'm just going to bag up my pick rails and the screws and the pins because they all kind of go together when I reassemble. I won't be painting this, so it's going to be separate. It's just going to go in the bag. And then I have all 4 of my screws, so good. I'm good to go. I think that is all. So we're just going to slide everything out of the way. Oh, I got 1 pin. I forgot to put it in the bag. I could just drop it. Cool. Awesome. Okay. That's it. So we're going to go, we'll bag this spring up too. So this one is not hard, but there are quite a few parts. It takes definitely a good bit more time. And then reassembly, which I will do as well. Once I have everything painted, we'll go through the reassembly portion. And reassembly, of course, you have to be really careful because you want to make sure that you don't scratch your parts up. So same thing going in together. So when I paint this, I'll put this together. My stencils actually hold this together once I start laying it. It's interesting because there's so many angles and it's so little. Doing camo is extremely challenging so that you don't get paint under each piece there. But I will be doing a little video on that for my stencil packs. But that's it, folks. When we come back around, we'll be doing the reassembly. Hang tight.